Thank you very much. As my wife said, I do hope you're all going to get a blessing from this. I worked really hard on this, and this is a bit of work that has been in progress, some clinical nuggets that I've been working on with patients that would just open up in front of my eyes. And then I decided to make a webinar of this. I don't think this is information that you can get out of any book. It's like, as you hit the road running, it's coming from patients. So please join me, and I hope you're going to, like I said, get a real good blessing from this. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how this came about with my practice, and I start with the individualism of homeopathy. Now, I assume there are some homeopaths on board here and lay people that probably have some kind of knowledge on homeopathy. We're going to try and put the spotlight on it today. But I'm going to start off from the point of view of homeopathy is very individualistic, and each homeopath that you might come into contact with has got a degree of knowledge, a basis on the homeopathic philosophy, and from that they develop their own way of healing, of dealing with their patients, right? So each homeopath goes along their individual journey, developing their specialities where they focus on and they get good at it. And I want to say they have an inkling of individualism and where they have been given their gift. So unlike allopathic medicine, when you go to a homeopath, with the same condition you can get different medications, different potencies. And the reason for that is they might be prescribing on different symptomatologies. Are they prescribing on a local symptom? Are they prescribing on a modality? Are they prescribing on a psychological system of symptomatology? And this is the beauty of the individualism. You know, I could get all hectic and say, well, the theory says this and this and this, but in reality, us humans are very individualistic, and we go with where we feel most comfortable, right? Now, my individualism, the way I developed my practice, I always focused on chronic disease from the beginning. I had a really good grounding in homeopathy and medicine. It was a 6-year course which also included medicine, and then I went further and I took on functional medicine. I thought it was important. That was about 10 years ago. There seemed to be for me a need, and also to be able to understand the physiology better. It was just great. And then more recently, I did some acupuncture and TCM theory, and TCM is the traditional Chinese medicine. Why that is so great in this talk is because it helped me to understand the emotional concepts of disease, how the body gets to be dysfunctional. They talk about the movement of qi. Well, in homeopathy, they talk about the vital force. The other aspect was getting involved in biooxidative therapies, which is the ozone and oxygen therapies, and that just set me up nicely because that deals with your body's ability to regulate the autonomic nervous system, the stress response. And if I just tell you a little secret, it's because that field of speciality is almost opposite to allopathic medicine. They frown on that. They don't like it because it hits big pharma where it hurts. And then more recently, with focusing and specializing on thyroid disease, that came about with virtual consulting and the benefit of dealing with the autoimmunity and how it has its effect on emotional causation. Because this talk, I'm focusing on the emotions and how according to me, how the emotions drive almost everything. Now, my thyroid support group highlighted this for me. In autoimmune thyroiditis, you can help the patient in many ways. Maybe they've got a toxicity, maybe there's a viral complaint, and you can deal with all of those. And what happens there is they improve, yes, but they don't cure, okay? They will cure once you deal with the emotional effects. And this is what became so apparent for me. I couldn't understand it. From a functional medicine perspective, I did everything right. And we weren't getting the aha results that I was expecting until I was able to dig into the emotional effects. The problem with that is not everybody likes to deal with those emotional effects. It's a scary thing. So what do we normally traditionally do for the emotional things? We go and we see the psychologist, or we get counseling. We might even take antidepressants or the like. Some people even go as far as to get shock therapy. Now, all of those things are, by the way, opposite to Hering's law of cure. And this law of cure helps us as homeopaths or naturopaths to see, is the body moving forward in a positive manner, or is it just a palliation or suppression? Anyway, like I said, most people will take the route of least resistance, and they will go for the usual counseling, allopathic medication per se. But at best, they might get a small reprieve, but you'll always have a relapse because you haven't dealt with the root cause. So these people who were thyroid sufferers, mostly hypothyroid patients, they would be feeling better, but they could not stop their thyroid supplementation. They had to stay on that, and the only time that they'd be able to get off it was if they dealt with the emotional issue, healed the emotional issue, and then they'd be able to reduce their thyroid meds and in some cases come off them. So these were the homeopathic trends that I saw developing in my practice, right? And the number one thing was, strangely enough, how I would prescribe, my potencies would be going up. So they would be almost contrary to the normal philosophies of the lower potencies would just be for physical conditions, and the high potencies for the more emotional or severe or long-standing conditions. I kind of put that on its head, and most of my scripts were the higher potencies. And I couldn't understand this, but like the intuition would take over. And on doing more research, according to me, I reckon our environment, and I'm going to be triggering you now, remember that word environment. It's going to come up in this talk tremendously. Our environment has been damaged. And I'm talking specifically our electromagnetic spectrum. For the last 20 to 30 years, we've been having, I think it's from 97, started to get severe, but we've been having increased amounts of EMFs in the lines of the Wi-Fi, in the lines of the cellular towers, and that's been affecting our biology, specifically by changing the voltage-gated calcium channels. These are channels in each cell wall, and when they are changed by the EMFs that we're exposed to, and remember, this is a cumulative thing. You don't just get exposed to the EMFs like for an hour a day. It's almost continuous. Many people sleep with it all around them, and it causes calcium to be dumped in the cell. Traditionally, when calcium is dumped into the cell, it is a stress response that the body goes through. The allopathic side of things, they even make what are called voltage-gated calcium channel blockers as drugs to reduce your blood pressure. But when your EMF balances out, some people even get what's called an EMF sensitivity. You're going to suffer with things such as insomnia, fatigue, headaches, these type of things. And this is the reason why the homeopathy is more effective if you can use the high potencies, right? The other thing that I noticed was that my use of diagnostic criteria, my use of the allopathic model to diagnose would become almost non-effective, or I wouldn't use it very much when I was able to get into the patient and help them from the emotional aspect. Right. So none of my talks go without a little bit of education. And today we're going to talk about Hering's law of cure and why it's important in this hierarchy of healing, especially when we're looking at the emotional side of things, right? So it's a law that we use as clinicians to make decisions on whether our remedy is right, whether the body is healing or palliating or being suppressed. And this law says that healing will occur from above downwards. So whatever is happening, if it's moved from the top of the body down, then you know that's a positive establishment, or from within outwards, or from a more important organ to a less important organ. So if you can see this happening in your treatment, even though the person might be feeling worse or having a reaction, you know the body's vital force is being roused and they are moving towards healing. Okay, very, very important. Some people even say that if you have chronic disease and you have got suppression, you have been exposed to some type of suppressive tendency, and Herring's law has to throw that out. Okay. Now, when I'm using Herring's law, or when I'm trying to express this to the patients, I use some weird examples that are maybe severe, but will get them to understand this, right? Now, I'll start on the physical. Most people are aware of the physical. So I'll say to the patient, I've got really bad news for you today. You have to have the surgery, but you've got a choice. I can either cut your neck off, or I can cut your baby finger off. Which would you choose? And they think, and every patient would say, well, I'll do without a baby finger. And the reason for that is you can live without a baby finger, but if I cut off your neck, you're dead. So that is the explanation from the physical, looking at the more important organ or the more important area you're going to try and keep till the last. If we have to do the Herring's law across the bodies, so I'm wanting to compare the physical body to the emotional body, I'm going to put more effort or more emphasis on emotional symptoms. So I'll say to the patient, so you have a choice again. Would you be chronically depressed, or would you rather have maybe excrescence or an itch on your baby finger? And they always take the baby finger, all right? So that's showing that the physical is a better outlet than the emotional, right? And the way we would explain this from a physiological perspective would be your gut-brain axis affecting the emotional and down into the physical. Right. If we're going to be talking more, you're going to be looking at the emotional blocks. And by focusing on these emotional blocks and changing these blocks, releasing these emotions, the body's able to, the vital force is able to be roused and healing is able to occur. Right? Now, typically in homeopathy, we've got something called the NBWS, and that stands for never been well since. So a typical thing that you would ask or try and get the patient to divulge to you is, when were you last well? They say, oh, everything was great before I got divorced, or before I lost my job, or, everything went downhill after I was sexually abused. That is your never been well since. And you try and prescribe on that event, right? And that's homeopathy. And yes, I've had varying degrees of success and the duration that takes to occur. But when I started using mega potency homeopathy, those degrees of success just skyrocketed, and the duration that it took for the person to feel better also reduced in time. So they got better much quicker. And this is on situations where they were dealing for years, for decades with this condition. And that's not saying that they just had the condition and they were doing nothing about it. They were looking for different ways of dealing with it, getting treatments, and it was kind of just hanging around there. In homeopathic format, I would say they were not able to rouse the vital force. But with this mega potency homeopathy, it's like it just blasted through everything. And at this moment, I just want to give so much, what do I call it, a shout out to Jill, who actually started this homeopathic movement of the mega potency homeopathy. She's recently passed, but she gave us such a a wonderful foundation to work on. And I'm taking that foundation and I'm wanting to link it to what I call the psychoneuroimmunology and epigenetics in the body. These are scientific studies of physiology relating to the emotions, and I want to pull homeopathy through that so we can see how these megapotencies are working and how they change belief systems. And that's basically what I'm going to be talking about today. Everything is focused on the emotional and changing the emotional. And hopefully after this, you're going to be able to understand why I'm so intensely focused on that. Because I believe that is how we are going to be opening up so much potential for the body to heal. Right. So in developing this or going through the homeopathic processes, every homeopath has an example or an aha moment when they're dealing with it. And I want to share mine with you and watch the vocabulary that I use, and I use it without even knowing it. So I have this patient, and like I said to you, we always look for the never been well since. That is like your trophy. If you can find a never been well since, your tendency to have success would be so much better if you can link the right remedy. So this lady, she's had chronic anxiety since childhood. And when I searched to find out when and why, she said, well, I think it was from the time that one of her family members was washed away in a flood. So I interpret that and I said, that must be a grief. So that shock was a never been well since that person that drowned in the flood. So I'm trying to explain this to the patient. Sometimes you can make a mistake or you not understand that because I talk homeopathy all day, every day, this is just normal. But so many patients don't understand what I'm saying. So you have to really explain it. So the best way I could explain to her was I said to her, these symptoms that you're dealing with have actually put your body into a time warp. And you are actually still stuck in 1986. That was the time when that flood happened. Okay. But she was consulting me in 2002. So I said, your emotional body is stuck in 1986. That's when you had that anxiety or that trauma. So it kind of just flips a switch and plays that program over again. And I thought I was so brilliant. And I prescribed the NatMer 1M, and it did help her to a small degree, but she was still struggling with the insomnia. Maybe it was a bit less. But then when we brought in the big guns and I was giving her the NatMer 10 the mega potency, again, I was almost washed away in a flood in how she changed so quickly. The insomnia resolved and her anxiety also resolved. And this is a patient, the family history and her daughter, they are all struggling with anxiety and that type of manifestation of illness. So let's have a look at what is a megapotency in homeopathic terms. A very high dilution of a homeopathic remedy above a 10M, above a 10 million dilution. And it is specifically known to resolve emotional issues or shocks such as guilt, fear, griefs, or angers. And I have said, or I call it, these issues are from a top-down dripping approach into the physical. I say top-down because I've put the emotional body higher than the physical body. So these triggers come from the top, from the emotion down, and manifest in the physical body. And hopefully I'll be able to show you how that happens. And I'm going to be repeating it a few times so that the medical terminology does not seem too overwhelming and you can get the concept, right? So the mega potency is just quickly, if you're going to prescribe a 20M, that's going to give mostly emotional benefits. A 50M will give physical benefits. A CM is where the endocrine organs are involved, and that would be emotional and hormonal improvements. Now, personally, I use mostly CM, MM, and 10 mm. Right. Another defining story to help settle the megapotency process for you. So there was this lady, she was about 45, I think, and I'd taken her case and she was under treatment, nothing hectic happening. But she phoned me up the one day. She was just about to head into the ER. She had gallstone pain, and she was actually waiting for the scans, right? Liver pain. She had that pain going into the shoulder, which was typically a chelidonium situation. And maybe I would have been happy just to give her some chelidonium and wish her well. But knowing her case, there was a deeper aspect. The previous year, she had lost her father. She was crazy about her dad. He had passed, and she was left with mom, and she wasn't getting on so well with mom. Her mom, she said, put her down her whole life. She wasn't able to express what she needed to her mom, and she often felt guilty. So she was holding a lot of resentment. And what was the word? She didn't feel good enough. Rejection maybe was a better word, not resentment. Rejection would have been better. And then she was feeling guilty because her mom was living with her, and she couldn't really express what she needed. So we gave her some chelidonium for the acute, but I gave her some Netmer 10 mm for 20 days. Uh, they said to her, listen, she's going to have to come back, and they're probably going to have to take her gallbladder out. Well, 20 days later, she went back for another scan. Her gallbladder was fine. She didn't have to have anything out, and she didn't have any pain. So I wished her well, maybe suggested that she get some acupuncture treatments, and I didn't hear from her for exactly 1 year. 1 year to the day, she phoned me up again. She said, it's starting again. And at that moment, I realized the mistake. The Netmer had worked really well, but it hadn't cleared out the emotional pattern totally. So her living in the environment that she was living in with her mom, which kept on triggering those old patterns of her being feeling rejected, had started to cause a bit of that resentment, and the gallbladder was playing up again. So we put her back on a couple of doses of the high potency Netmer, and I just said to her, once a month you take a high dose potency for a year. She hasn't had any relapse, and she is actually processing her life so well. She doesn't get put up and down with situations with living with her mom. She doesn't take that all on anymore, right? So she's not holding that negativity anymore. And she's not feeling like that bad daughter, which was absolutely amazing. Right. Now let's bring in the psychoneuroimmunology aspect. This is quite easy. I'm going to break it up into those three words. So if you can just think of those three words, the psychoneuroimmunology. And this describes the interaction between your emotional body or the psyche and how it interacts with your nervous system and how that has a knock-on effect with your immune system. Okay, so how your mind affects your immune system. So let's think your psyche, how you're feeling, those emotions, then it stimulates your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. That is the neuro aspect of it, and it produces or releases certain neurochemicals. So a feeling, an emotion in the physical body then will release neurochemicals. There you see them in black, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, okay, it can be dopamine. These are all neurochemicals, right? And that has or can have a knock-on effect on your immune system. So what I'm saying to you is your thought patterns can affect your immunity, your psychoneuroimmunology, right? Adding on to that is the concept of the epigenetics. Epigenetics is, epi is like above, so it's kind of above genetics. What they say is the genes load the gun and epigenetics fires the bullet. So what I'm saying to you, epigenetics has got to do with your environment, how your environment affects your genes, how the environment will turn that gene on or off. And so your genes can be affected by what you eat, by sunlight exposure, by certain toxins that you are exposed to, how your metabolism works, how your body ages, how you deal with inflammation. All of these things are your genes turning on and off. But it is the environment that determines when they turn on or off. I'm using that word environment. Keep that in your head. It's going to come up again, and hopefully all the pieces of the puzzle are going to get together, right? And you guys are all going to say, wow, that's amazing. So let's do a bit of education here quickly. We're looking at the patient comes in to see me. What am I looking at? I'm not just looking at that physical body sitting in the chair opposite me. Yes, there's a physical body, and probably most of the time they're going to come with a physical complaint. Oh, I'm constipated. I've got no energy. I've got a rash on my arm, whatever it is. So that seems to be manifesting in the physical. But they've got an emotional body, they've got a mental body, and they've got a spiritual body. And there are different classifications on what is emotional and what is mental. Like I suppose you would say things like if you are suicidal, those are mental issues, or if you are bipolar tendencies, psychotic, those are also mental issues. And then there's obviously the spiritual. But now remember, I talk about a top-down process. We're going to be talking about this. When the patient is here, I'm not just looking at their physical body, I'm looking at their whole organism. And we're going to see where is the root cause of the illness to be able to heal them. And when we're talking about healing, we're not just talking about putting a Band-Aid over there. We're wanting to get that disease process out of the body, right? So getting back to the psycho-neuroimmunology of emotions. Why is this so important? Remember, the psycho is dealing with the emotions. And when the emotion is not processed, when the emotion is suppressed, that's when you get the detrimental aspect in the body. Imagine me being so angry, but I've got to smile and wave. Okay. What is happening in the body? Okay. My body is smiling and I'm waving, but that is it's like a lie. It's a front that I'm putting on. Your body uses huge energy to put that front on. Okay. You can imagine if I'm feeling so angry and I'm just being so kind to everybody and sweet, at the end of the day, I can be absolutely exhausted. Okay. It's a false mirage that I'm putting on. Your body takes huge strain with that. And if we have a look at the mechanism of what happens, the emotion, the psycho, then goes into the nervous system, the neuro, and it has a release of hormones with the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. You get neurochemicals being released, which can then form into some type of response, whether you are crying, whether you are rageful, whether you're having tears, okay? And, often you get someone will say, oh, I just need to have a good cry. I've got such emotion in me. I have a good cry and I feel better. Well, the emotion has been released out of the body. Okay, I'm feeling better. But it's when you suppress these emotions that it goes in, and that's when disease really is able to start making. So this, obviously, I've just spoken about that suppression causes a reduced immune function. You're not able to recover properly. Right. Now, as a practitioner, how do I know all this? What can I do about it? So TCM is a modality, traditional Chinese medicine, talks about, the theory talks about, have a look at the picture there, those 5 organs. And those 5 organs process the emotions. They don't only process the emotions, they also process the physical. Let's take the liver as an example. You'll see that it says liver, dealing with the emotions of anger, irritability, frustration. So let's give you first an emotional example. This is especially good example for moms. They just love their kids, but their kids can frustrate them and irritate them beyond comprehension. So tell me, why on a day can your child irritate you and do the same behavior and make you angry, but you don't respond or react? But the next week they do that and you absolutely lose it, or you feel absolutely terrible because the anger comes up. The difference is that when you didn't feel bad about it, the liver was acting as a buffer because it was in a good state, a good frame, and was able to absorb that shock. But the week where the children really aggravated you and you couldn't cope with it, your liver wasn't in such a strong state and it couldn't act as a buffer. So you felt the anger and the irritability. The liver, or all the organs, actually also have a physiological function. And for the liver, it might be producing hormones or detoxifying toxins, etc. And from a TCM perspective, you might give certain herbal formula or acupuncture to rebalance that, right? Let's go on to, what does homeopathy say? Homeopathy also deals with emotions, and it deals with it through the provings that are documented in the repertory. So, for example, you'll see there ailments from anger, anxiety, and anger. Okay, and then you've got the different remedies. So those remedies will nullify or reduce the effect of the anger or the grief or whatever that shock is. To my understanding, they might be working on slightly different mechanisms, but homeopathy is more intense or more specialized in the different types of angers, where TCM is just a blanket general supporting the liver to clear the anger, where homeopathy would be specific anger due to jealousy or due to abuse, right? Right, we're going to be talking about that never been well since. Remember, this is the crux to get into the root of the problem, especially if you are trying to look at the emotional aspect. Now, it's really easy to determine what is never been well since if there is a physiological process going on. Well, I've never been well since I took those antibiotics or since that surgery. Okay, those are easy ones, and then you can prescribe on that. It's more difficult when you are playing in the emotional realm. And the reason is because your patient does not know what you're looking for. Most people are not familiar on how to deal with emotions. These things are overwhelming. They just take control of me, and I don't know what to say. And if they tell me, or the homeopath would ask, so what are you feeling about that? And especially if it is a guy. Guys are the worst with that. No, I'm fine. Everything's fine. He might be stressed out of his bracket. He might be so angry because his business is not doing so well. But he'll just say, I'm fine. Right? So patients aren't in touch with their emotions. They don't know how to process it. They also, if it's a long ago emotion that hasn't been dealt with, trauma, time dulls the effect of them being able to locate or get in touch with that emotion, right? And, if that all isn't enough, you're not just going to go off on the first guy on the street and start spilling your heart out to him. So the patient has to feel safe to be able to bring these things up. So you have to be able to exude a sense of trust. Well, I can trust the person with this, to let them into my heart and the deepest, darkest aspects of my life. So that's why often getting to the never been well since is more difficult. It's not impossible, but that's what can draw out the duration for the patient to get well. So this might sound strange to a lot of people. I say healing emotions is relatively easy and practical. Well, you say, no, that's not right. I've been struggling with this for a long time, or I've been depressed for a long time. I've been on antidepressants for a long time. Well, actually, you haven't been dealing with healing your emotions. You've just been covering them up. But the traditional ways of working with that is counseling, or they might say, oh, yes, you've got so much trauma. Let's go into it. And how did that feel? And what's going on? And they get you to rehash these traumas, which, as I said, lots of people are not into doing that, or they've done it 1, 2, 3 times. They don't want to do it again, right? And all of this is approaching it from asking you this and accessing your conscious mind, right? Your conscious mind does not hold all of those emotions. Right now, about 5% of my conscious mind is working here. Am I saying the right thing? I might be thinking, oh, I hope that the people are enjoying what I'm saying. Consciously, I'm aware of that. Am I talking clearly enough? This is all the conscious mind working, right? That is not how you deal with emotions. We'll talk more about what you do there. Let's see, what does healing require? You've got to understand or assess what is important to the patient. You've got to understand, the patient needs to understand what their belief systems are. Remember, I said that they're not in touch with what they believe, or they think they know what they believe. This third one here, you've got to recalibrate your subconscious mind patterns. Your subconscious mind stores all your patterns, your belief systems, how you process different states from when you were born. And most of that is set almost in concrete by the age of 9. All right. But now, what if those patterns aren't serving you? You are replaying those patterns over and over. Now I'm 20, now I'm 30, now I'm 50. Maybe I came out of an abusive home. The way I respond and react to things, I'm not in an abusive home now, but I'm responding the same way. So we have to have a look, and we have to see if we can reprogram that subconscious mind into patterns that are going to serve you, right? Now, what happens when you get into a state where you are stressed out? Your body goes into a sympathetic state, a fight or flight, and in a fight or flight, you cannot resolve your issues. That shock that the body is trying to balance or deal with blocks that out. So you need to get into what we call a brain and heart coherent state, where the brain and the heart are talking to each other. When you are in that fight or flight mechanism, or your autonomic nervous system is dysregulated, you cannot get into that state, right? And one way to do that is to get regular mega potency homeopathic treatment. I did speak a little bit about the conscious brain and the subconscious brain, or the subconscious mind, and this is what we're talking about. We want to focus on that subconscious, to change your subconscious to work for you, to change the way you deal with traumas and conflict. Because if those traumas and those conflict and those belief systems are not positive and working for your current lifestyle, then you're never going to heal from those emotional things. So we spoke about brain and heart coherence to change your emotional patterns. So why are we doing that? We're wanting to get into that alpha brainwave state. The alpha brainwave state is a state that your brain, let me go back a bit. Right now, you say to me, well, what brain state are you in? I'll say, I'm in beta brainwave state. I'm in a conscious state. I'm processing things in my head. I've got to think about what I'm going to say. That's all beta. Okay, I'm even maybe a bit defensive. I'm in a stress state here. This is your beta. This is when you wake up and you go about your day, right? So, okay, so we're talking about the facilitation here, and it said they're raising your vibration, changing the emotional feelings. So this is how you change the subconscious mind, by changing the emotions from the old patterns that are not serving you to patterns that your body will work with. But the only way you can change it is by bringing your brain and your heart into that state where it's open to changing it. All right. And this is achieved by doing something called creative visualization, to change your past emotions that are not working for you into something that is working for you, right? Okay, that is just about the different brainwave states. All right, here's a little bit of theory that I want to get into your head with a bit of fun, right? So we're talking about your thoughts, your attitudes, your beliefs, and your perceptions. So you have a thought and a feeling, and a thought and a feeling, and another thought and a feeling, and that then creates an attitude. Now, I've had some good thoughts and some good feelings about today. I'm going to have a lovely webinar, and I'm going to interact with the people, and I'm feeling really good. Okay? So these thoughts and these feelings have led to me having a good attitude. Or, I don't know what I'm going to tell them. What if they don't like it? And now I'm feeling like all stressed out, and I'm having negative thoughts about this webinar, and I start to get a bad attitude. All right. Now, when you take a whole bunch of attitudes and you put it together, you form a belief system. When you put a whole lot of belief systems together, you form what's called a perception. Right. And then when you put a whole lot of perceptions together, you form what's called a personality. And that personality develops into what we call your personal reality. Okay. And that personal reality is all your old patterns, all your beliefs, and all your feelings together, right? Your personal reality. So, how are you going to change that if you've got your old thought patterns and you say, oh, it's too hard to change, or I can't change, or listen, I'm in this bad situation because my boss is doing this and this and this. Okay. You can't change it if you've got those old patterns and belief systems, because you're going to keep going round and round like that. You've got to stop allowing your environment, there's that word environment, to determine the outcome of your life. So what if you can take control of the environment? Remember what we said? We said with epigenetics, the genes are there. It gives you what the tendencies are, but the epigenetics fires a bullet. The epigenetics is the environment. So we've got to change your environment. And you're going to start changing your old patterns and your belief systems to things that work for you. Right. I hope that I'm not going to lose you here. So we're going to talk about cause and effect. Now, I'm doing so badly. I've got no money, or I'm doing so badly. I'm just so lonely. Or maybe I'd say, I'm so sick, and I'm so sick and tired of being sick and tired. All right. I can't wait to win the lottery, and then I will be wealthy. Well, I'm telling you, we've got to change that thought pattern. You've got to feel the abundance first, and then you'll be wealthy. It's not wealthy first, and then you feel abundant. The same thing with love. I can't wait to meet that girl, and then I will feel like I'm in love. You've got to feel the love first, and that'll manifest the girl. All right. And the same with your healing. I'm feeling well, and then you will experience the healing. So the old way of doing it is we're looking at the Newtonian belief systems, and we want to change that into what we call the quantum effect, or quantum physics. Homeopathy is actually using quantum physics because it's an energy medicine. I say, homeopathy is placebo. There's no substance in those little white pills. All right. There's no physical substance. So I'm saying it can't work. So what am I fixating on there? I'm fixating on the physical. All right. If I'm going to drink this water and it's got some poison in it, it was the poison that killed me. It was the physical substance that killed me. But homeopathy hasn't got a physical substance. How can it work? We're working on the quantum field. We're working on the energetic system. Right. Here's another concept. Beliefs determine how you think and feel. Belief is a thought you keep thinking over and over, and then it becomes hardwired into your brain. Then you don't even have to think about it anymore. It's an automatic thing. Someone says to me, is your wife beautiful? I don't even have to think. I know her for so long. I said, she's amazing. She's beautiful. That's my belief system. Okay. And these belief systems become hardwired into our brain, into our way of feeling over some time. And these belief systems can go around anything from your relationships to money, to your creator, to what you think of work, anything, right? And they are based on emotions. Remember, it starts what you think and feel. Think and feel becomes an attitude, becomes a belief, a perception, a personality, a personal reality. So then we can say how you think and feel creates your state of being. So I hope I'm not going too fast, and I hope you can start to get where I'm going here. So I just want to show you again, and we've spoken about this, but I'm bringing it in from different angles so the penny can drop for you. What I'm saying here is the emotion brings the physical stimulation. The emotional body drives the physical body through neurochemicals. That's psycho-neuro-immunology. So we are first a non-physical being, then it comes into our mind, and our emotions are formed, so to speak, and then that affects our physical body. It's the top-down mechanism is what I call it, or I'll try and explain it, right? So let's get back to this. This is what we call the mind-body connection. And I think I'm taking this mind-body connection to the nth degree. The allopathic field does talk about a mind-body connection, but they're talking more about, they will say your brain, your vagus nerve talks to your gut. And so the emotions or the neurochemicals from your brain then affect your gut. Okay. Absolutely, I agree 100% with that, but I'm taking it to the nth level, to the next level, okay, by saying we need to change the way we are perceiving things, okay? We need to take control of our emotions. And then by doing that, we are able to rewire our brain, change the neurochemicals. Let me try and give another example. Let's say I've just had a fight with my neighbor and I've got to come give this talk. And I rush in here and I'm huffing and I'm puffing and I'm like, the smoke is coming out of my ears. I'm really angry. So what does that mean? That anger has pushed out certain angry neurochemicals. Maybe the cortisol is pumping, the adrenaline is pumping. Okay. And now you're saying to me, well, come on, you got to give this talk. I'll try and start to give it, but my body is in the state of that anger. I will not get my point across properly, right? So what you're looking to do is you want to rewire your brain into the emotions and feelings that are going to be serving you. So let's see if we can use an example. Let's get back to I've never been well since. And this has never been well since I've been betrayed. Okay, can you see I'm using the emotion? The emotion comes in, the emotion of betrayal comes in to my body, and it will process through certain neurochemicals, and I'll feel a certain way and I'll act a certain way because of that betrayal. Right. So we say we are betrayed. You were betrayed by your business partner. You were in partnership and you ran a fast food company. All right. And I don't know, you lost a whole lot of money. And you felt betrayed because the partner stole the money or something to that effect. I'm just making something up here. So now every time you walk past McDonald's, you are thinking, I was betrayed. I'm angry. I was robbed. You are stimulating the emotion, and you are stimulating the emotion from the past, right? So 2025, I'm walking past McDonald's, but this betrayal happened in 2023. It's the emotion, the feeling, the belief system from the past, from 2023, is driving my 2025 life, right? The attitudes and belief systems from 2023 are driving my 2025 life, all right? The betrayal emotion elicits fear in the brain, in the amygdala, and the fear neurochemicals are stimulated. Someone might look at me and say, oh, come on, that happened 2 years ago. We were just walking down and we were having fun, and I said, hey, can you buy me a McDonald's? And I just flipped out because my body goes back to 2023. It goes back to that time warp, right? And why is that? Because the neurons that fire together wire together. I've got that neuronal circuit in my brain continually going. And then just when it starts to die down, I go past another McDonald's and it gets wound up again, right? So it stimulates that stress response in my body. I'm in my autonomic nervous system gets exhausted. Right? Can you see how the top down, the emotions keep driving my body? I'm like, oh, I don't know what's happening. I'm just feeling so tired, or I've put on so much weight, and I'm thinking it's a physical thing. The physical thing is the result of the emotional thing. So, and Jill talks about this, the effect of shock. And shock can take many effects throughout many of the different bodies, through anesthesia, through a chemical shock. It affects and it has a direct result on the autonomic nervous system. Isn't this interesting? If you weren't in shock, you wouldn't get ill because your body would be regulating properly. So you wouldn't have disease if you weren't shocked. Or you say, no, I've never heard of that. I'm not shocked. You don't even realize the shocks that you go through. Okay. So, silly example maybe, but, you're driving along and you're not doing anything wrong and you see a police car quickly. What do you do immediately? Like, and you reduce your speed. Why is that? Well, your body goes into that shock state. So that, and especially these days, we're finding people are in the sympathetic state continually, and it weakens your vital force. It weakens your whole body's ability to respond to illness. But interestingly enough, homeopathic remedies, listen to this, homeopathic remedies can release the shock even if it happened yesterday or 10 years ago or 40 years ago. You say, no, that's difficult to believe. I mean, that event that happened 40 years ago, how can that be? It's changing the neurochemical effect that your body is replaying through the emotion, right? Okay. So let's see, how can we change these processes, these automatic processes that we are continually in? Okay, I'm using the example of the betrayal, all right? Two ways that you can do it. Use the appropriate megapotency homeopathic remedy. So in this case, I chose Natmer. The guy was betrayed. He's got that, that feeling towards his business partner. And you change your belief system to that. So you walk past a McDonald's in 2025 and you don't re-stimulate that anger, rejection, betrayal feeling because you've moved on. You've moved your life into your new future. You're not in 2023, you're in 2025. You hear what I'm saying? You have killed the old neuronal pathway where those nerve cells fire and wire together that brings on the emotion of anger or resentment to the guy that stole the money. You've changed your belief system. You've changed your emotion. So in this way, you're turning off the betrayal emotion. Your body stops being drained. This is a general look at shock. Your body is not able to process the bacteria or the emotional component because it's been going on for so long. Your immune system downregulates. Your autonomic nervous system is dysregulated. Get in there with the megapotency homeopathy. Right? Brilliant remedy for that shock, that fear is aconite. It'll release that stored emotion. Your perspective will change. Remember, your thought, feeling develops an attitude. Attitudes together develop a belief system, which develop perspectives. So this is reversing that. And by reversing that, you open the blood supply and your healing is able to start from the physical body. So these homeopathic remedies are vibrational essences or quantum energy. It has an effect on the quantum body. It supplies energy to help the body to restore healing or to release the shock. And by releasing the shock, that's how you can go back 40 years or whenever that shock happened. Okay. Remember why your body goes into shock, goes into that numb state when you can't deal with the situation. So here's a rather severe example, but you get into a boxing match and you get a hard knock to the head and you get knocked out. Well, why did you get knocked out? Your body cannot deal with the trauma or the inflammation, so it takes you down so that you don't get exposed to anymore. So when you get into a shock that you can't process properly, the body shuts it off. Then, even if it's 40 years later, you supply the homeopathic remedy to release the shock, the body's able to get the vital force to function again, and you start living again, you start functioning again, you start feeling again. Right. Isn't this a strange heading? Back to your new future. So how do we do that? You've got to start living a new story. So that example of the business partner, okay, you're not in 2023, you're in 2025. You need to be able to walk past McDonald's and not have a negative emotion that brings up all those neurochemicals and that negative feeling, right? So how do you do it? Look at number 2. The only time you will believe in the future is when you feel the emotion of the future. You've got to drop the emotion associated with that betrayal. You do that to change your belief system and your perception. So how do we do that? Basically, what we're doing is we are changing the way your brain is hardwired. We're changing those neuronal pathways that push back to the resentment, the anger, okay, of 2023, and we've got to put in a new one, your future self. And then you're not going to react and respond like that. Okay, I hope I haven't lost you. Let's get back to the third dimensional reality. So what is your third dimensional reality? Basically, we are relating to the material world in the essence of your height, your width, and your length, whether it be of me as a person or the height, width, and length of that box that I'm going to be sending to the courier, the company. That's the 3D dimensions. So what would happen if we started playing in the fourth dimension, which includes the dimension of time? Can we control time? And this is what these homeopathic remedies can do, as well as you changing the emotional pattern, right? Let's see what I mean by that. So the fourth dimension is obviously the length, the height, the width, and the fourth dimension of time. So what I'm meaning by that is, let's say it takes, I don't know, 15 years for you to develop some severe illness, right? Or you can put it the other way around. It takes actually 10 years to recover from the severe illness. That is the time frame. Now, what if you could speed that time frame up, that it would only take a week to heal from that illness, right? That's what I'm talking about by speeding up time. And this can be done through creative visualization, bringing the new emotion into your body. It's different to your past emotion. And that past emotion was holding you in the past, was breaking down that psychoneuroimmunology process, breaking down the immune system and leading you to feel sick or ill. But by changing the emotion, you build up the psychoneuroimmunology pathway, and your body can start to heal in record time per se. Right? You're changing your personal reality. So we spoke about this. I think we saw the slide really. Basically, getting your brain and heart into coherence in an alpha wave state, you are able to overcome the body's old emotion with a new emotion. When you are in this alpha brainwave state, your body is more creative and more open to feeling. So basically what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to overwhelm the body that has the old emotion in it, and you want to overwhelm it with a new emotion for the new emotion to take its place. So in that sense, you are leaving the past behind, and you starting with I call it the future, or the new emotional way that your brain is going to become hardwired. Right? Let's look at an example here. You've got a very stressful situation. You're living in a difficult marriage. And because of that, you are constantly in survival mode. You dread coming home because you know there's going to be a fight or some innuendo done. So your body is in this fight or flight mode response, and it's been like that for years. You are even manifesting physical symptoms, anxiety, angers, depressions. Can you see all those emotions there, right? So if you're going to be treating this homeopathically, you're going to be focusing in on those. Because of that, your body's drained. You don't have any extra energy to kind of support that vital force, or extra energy to use in your internal environment, to change your brainwave patterns, to grow, to repair. So this loop just keeps going over and over and over again. So how do you change that? If you say, I'm in this situation because of the difficult marriage, you are still in the past. You haven't changed. You're blaming your environment. Okay? Remember what we spoke about the environment? You can't blame the environment. You've got to change that environment. You've got to live your future in a way that you've changed your past belief system, that past emotion that led you to feel this bad marriage, these bad feelings, this bad experience, by changing the emotion into that future emotion that is now serving you. This might be a difficult concept to grasp, because you are very reactive. I had a patient, was it 2 or 3 days ago? She said something like, in my household, I grew up with an abusive father, and there was always shouting, and I can't take that. So whenever there's a shouting incident in her house, what does she do? She goes back to when she was 2 or 3 years old, and her body responds and reacts like that. So now, how can I change if I'm in that fight mode, in that panic mode, right? So when you've realized this, and maybe this webinar is the start of you opening up that, right? When you realize and you are able to overcome the emotional state, what does that mean? You don't have that emotional charge to the memory of the marriage. Then you can create your future. Now, here's the thought. Well, actually 90,000 thoughts. You think 90,000 thoughts a day, and 75% of those thoughts are the same as the day before. Without changing your thoughts, you are unable to change your body. You are unable to change your previous attitudes and your belief system. So you're going to stay in the same way of believing, of acting, of your neurochemicals functioning. And that's why you're going to react, because your psychoneuroimmunology, your pathways of responding are exactly like this. So if you are going to sulk, or you're going to shout back at that person, you're only hurting yourself. I put this like you're drinking poison and you're hoping somebody else dies. it's imperative that you shorten your reaction time to those emotional responses. Remember, you want to keep yourself away from those past responses. Those thought patterns make you sick, and it stimulates the neurochemicals and the stress hormones. You can't be healthy. You can't overcome that if you're always in the fight or flight. Because when you're in the fight or flight, your brain is and your heart is incoherent. Your autonomic nervous system is dysregulated. You are in shock. Right. Now we're getting interesting here. This is going to be like a clue on how you can change that. Right. Remember, I've been talking about this damn environment all the time, and changing the environment, and don't get sucked into the environment. So let's use an example here. Anyway, it says here, your body does not know the difference between an emotion created by a real life experience. So let's use an example. I'm playing soccer and I'm enjoying it, and I don't know, I get kicked or I fall and I break my leg. Oh, it's so painful. The pain is there, and I'm in shock, etc., etc. And they tell me, listen, you're going to be out for a year as your life as you try to heal this bone, and it's all serious. And can you imagine how emotional I'm feeling about that, right? Well, what if I said to you, change that emotion. Go into your creative visualization. See yourself healing quicker. See yourself being able to be playing soccer quicker. See the feeling that you are experiencing. You do that. They've actually done studies where they took college students, and one group, they took their metrics and they said, okay, now we want you to exercise for 7 days. And after 7 days, they took their metrics again. And yes, you are so much fitter, or whatever the metric was, had improved a certain amount. The second group of college students, they said, you're not going to exercise, but we want you to visualize yourself exercising, doing the same exercise. After 7 days, they took their metrics. Their metrics were the same as the group that had exercised, but they hadn't exercised, just by using this creative visualization, right? So what are we saying here? We're saying the environment signals the gene, and the end product of that experience is your emotion, okay? So what if we can signal that gene ahead of the environment? What I'm saying is, what if you don't have to go through the environmental aspect, okay? So in this example, you'd fallen and broken your leg and the pain and everything like that, and it was going to take 6 to 8 weeks to heal, and you would be out of playing soccer for a year. What if you didn't have to go through that environmental experience, and you could visualize that healing, and that would have a knock-on effect with your neurochemicals, changing the emotion? That way you are stimulating the gene, right? You're speeding up the healing process. That's how you are controlling time. You are controlling it, or you're using it from the quantum field instead of from the field of matter. And that's why it can happen so much quicker. Right. This is just basically expanding on that a little bit, basically saying that the gene stimulates the proteins which are responsible for the structure and function of your body. So a good example here would be, if we talk about, everybody's so scared of cancer, okay? Well, you've got cancer genes, they're called oncogenes. If you turn them on or off, you will have a tendency to get cancer or not. So what if we can turn the gene on ahead of the environment, okay, so that we change the tumor formation, okay? You get rid of that tumor through this process. So now we go back into, is cancer a metabolic disease? Is cancer due to emotions? Is it a combination? But I can guarantee you that those emotions, those thought patterns, those perceptions led your body to turn off that oncogene, and you developed the cancer because it downregulated your immune system, right? So we need to flip that on its head. So how do we do that? You need to facilitate your thoughts and your feelings. Remember that example that I keep on going, your thought and your feeling, your thought and your feeling develops your attitude, develops your belief system, develops your perceptions, your personality, and your personal reality. So you've got to start off with your conscious and your unconscious behavior. You've got to catch yourself. You've got to start to change that. How do you talk? Well, I'm very irritable and I shout. Or I've got a tendency to be negative. Change it over, because those things produce the fears and the worries. Cut those negative thoughts out. Change the way you feel. Change the way your body responds. Right? So, how do you apply today what we've learned? So there's two phases of application. The easiest phase would just be to use the mega homeopathy, and it works really well. So you get some continuous mega homeopathy consultations. And that is if you are in a state where you are able to express those emotions, to be able to get to the homeopathic remedy, right? The other way is to use this this concept of the creative visualization, the brain coherence, and you can even use them together for greater or faster effect. Now, I do what we call coaching on this, where I help the person get into this, because it can be overwhelming initially. Am I doing it right? Or I don't see any change, and to change those emotional patterns, it's very easy when you're not having an emotional pattern to rationalize it and say, oh yes, I'll just do this, or I'll just do that. But when you're going through a wobble, that's when to apply it. And that's what this coaching helps you to do. And the results are absolutely amazing. So I think we've come to the end of what I've had to say. I think now is the time for questions. Lisa Klaus, she says, dealing with emotional, mental aspects is a game changer. Absolutely, Lisa, and that you actually are a patient and you've actually started to experience it. Maybe, I said as I go, I'm putting the pieces of the puzzle together. So thank you to you. You've been part of the guinea pig brigade that I'm using to develop these concepts with, but you've seen yourself how it is changing things. And you've also noticed how in the beginning, there's so much resistance because those emotional patterns are so deeply set in through the hurts or the angers or whatever has gone down with you. But I think you're starting to see the movement forward. And we haven't even been doing any of the coaching. We've been mainly doing just the mega potencies, right?
So Shelley asked, please describe more about mega potencies. And then Ella asked, how do you combat the effects of EMF?
Okay, she's wanting to know more about mega potencies. You should read that book of Jill's. It's really full, and the concepts are great, and she explains it so actually in depth. And she has I love her repertoire of the different remedies. But what she's done is she's taken what she calls the 10 first aid remedies, and she's really expanded on the use of those remedies, even in chronic situations, right? For me, that was like so brilliant, and that was a game changer. So I'm not sure what you're wanting to know extra about the mega potencies. I use them when I have identified the emotional stress, the trauma, and like I said, it brings everything out so much quicker. It opens the body up to healing.
How do you combat the effects of EMF?
Okay, so EMF, you want to, it's most important when you sleep not to be around EMFs. Okay, EMFs are, when you sleep, your body goes through a process called autophagy. Basically, that's when it heals, right? Gets the acid alkaline balance, maybe the liver detoxifies the poisons, etc., etc. And if you've got the EMFs around you, your body's not able to do that. So it's almost like, can I almost put it to you this way, that gone through another 24 hours and you haven't been able to sleep. You're going to get more tired, more tired. Your autonomic nervous system is not going to be able to respond appropriately. It's just a chronic stress effect. And the medical doctors don't look at it. They don't see that as an issue. Definitely not Apple and Microsoft. They don't see that as an issue whatsoever. So you've got to be real sure. The easiest way to do that is at nighttime. You don't want to be exposed to the EMFs. Put your phones on airplane mode, turn your Wi-Fi off. That's a good start. There's other things that maybe would be an option, and that might take a bit more assessment. Do you have a tower that is, aimed straight at your bedroom window? You've got to do some EMF mitigation then. Someone said, Tammy says, has anyone tried Jesus? I do love homeopathy and natural remedies for acute and chronic situations for sure. I also put my faith and trust in Jesus, especially regarding healing emotions. I can't agree more with you, Tammy. Absolutely. I'm right there with you. So, you talking about the creative visualization. Well, you bring Christ in there. Absolutely. Lord, help me with this. Show me that. Help me to release that. Pray about it. Confess your sins. These are all biblical terms, and you can apply that there for sure. Catherine says, how about if there was no never well since? The person was just born this way, antisocial, suspicious of people, unhappy, or always had physical symptoms, skin issues, constipation. Well, maybe you're talking about there's a miasmic tendency, a miasmic weakness. There is homeopathy for that. Absolutely. So that's where I would start. But I would also look at mineral imbalances, that antisocial, suspicious of people. There's probably a big mineral imbalance there. So it is trying to assess the patient and see where the triggers are. There's always a never well since. Maybe we will struggle to find it, Maybe you have to go into the parents to see what was going on when they were pregnant. You'll find something. I like lots of people are saying it's about faith in Jesus. Absolutely. Whether you're using homeopathy, whether you're using allopathic medicine, that's just a modality. Okay. I mean, I can even go as far as to say that that's a belief system. All right. I believe homeopathy is really good. That's my belief system, and that is grounded on A, B, and C. All right. The allopathic doctor, he believes he's offering a service, and that's good. But ultimately, the creator is the healer. Okay. And it's by faith you are healed. So absolutely. Joanna says, how do you work with people who cannot visualize? How would you get them in a heart mind coherence? Well, so the brain coherence is, I think, it's a low frequency hertz. So you could play sounds that are that frequency. You'll get them into that. Also, certain breath work will help them to get into that frequency, because when you're breathing in, you're stimulating the sympathetic. When you're breathing out, you're stimulating the parasympathetic. So there's many ways to skin a cat. Okay. So they don't have to do the visualization. It might work, it won't. Yes, and hot math does work to simulate the body's coherence. You're right, Veron. Alison says, if a young adult has never been well since birth, would treatment begin based on mother's emotional state during pregnancy? That is probably a good option. If you're looking at it from a TCM perspective, they talk about the prenatal chi, which is the energy that comes from the kidney that is passed through by the parents onto the child. So if let's say, for instance, the mother is over 40, I think it's 45, then your prenatal chi, or your kidney energy, is a lot lower. So there's more tendency for weakness in the child, and likewise with the father. So absolutely, you would look at the mother's emotional state during the pregnancy. Maybe there was a trauma there. So someone says neurodivergent brain, dyslexic, ADD, born a right brain thinker, processes things differently than the neurotypical person. How does that affect homeopathy? No, it doesn't affect homeopathy. You're still going to use the same modus operandi, and there are specific remedies based on the symptomatology, right? Yes, you probably want to look at the environment, see what you can, how you can change the environment, whether it be just changing the Wi-Fi or changing the schooling system that they're in. You want to support the environment to support the genes, if I can put it that way, right? Alison says, I've had some mental relief from Arnica 200 that I was using for injury. Absolutely, Alison. So yes, it works on the physical and on the mental and on the emotional. She says she can feel an emotional wash when people in her house are angry, yelling, and swearing frequently. So that emotion is connecting with the past emotional patterns that your body is holding, and that's why you're connecting to it. You know, if you want to maybe look at it from a religious perspective, that that spirit is present in your house, and it is going against the Holy Spirit, and that's why you're feeling that. Can homeopathy help with food allergies? A lot of my autoimmune issues are due to food allergies. Is it MTHF, or are you saying there? How does homeopathy consider these? I've done tons of emotional release work, but I still have some physical symptoms that I believe are physical and not emotional. So when you're talking about physical, you just got to be certain of that. Remember, I said the top-down effect. So the emotional drives the neurochemical, which drives the hormonal portion. So if you're talking about MTHFR, that genetic defect, you might have a deficiency of one of the B vitamins that will help your hormonal balance to become balanced where it's deficient. So from that perspective, you're looking at the physical. So I wouldn't just treat you on the emotional, and I would double check. You know, you say you've done a lot of what did you say? Emotional, tons of emotional release. Okay, that's great. I'm not disputing that. Have you done effective emotional release? You say there that you have autoimmune issues. From my experience, every single case of autoimmunity, there is an emotional issue that has not been resolved or addressed sufficiently. And in terms of this discussion, we see the pattern, the emotional pattern, affecting that. Can you turn off genes that have been turned on? Absolutely. Remember, it's affecting remember the epigenetics. The genes load the gun, the epigenetics fires the bullet. So you've got to change the environment. So if I say the environment, yeah, this comes to my mind. Many years ago, I was selling houses, and I went to this house, and they showing me around the house, and in the flatlet, they've got like this biggish room with a bath, and they've got like little ducks in the bath, and just in the corner they have I think it was a boa constrictor sitting there. So now you can imagine those ducks are living in fear 24/7, wondering when that boa constrictor is going to come and take them out. That environment is not beneficial. That environment can be triggering genes on to make them sick. So you've got to also look at your environment, change the environment, and preferably if you can change that emotional pattern, great. So someone says manifest. This sounds like a new age, new thought. Oh, I'm sorry you think that. It can be seen that way. Absolutely. That's not my intention to bring that up this way. It's what I'm talking about here is not new age. I'm fully committed to the Lord Jesus. It's just another mechanism. It can be seen as new agey, but that is not the way that I go about it. Absolutely. That's everything that I've explained to you now is totally scientific and backed by science. It's no woo-woo stuff or anything like that, but I can see how people might misconstrue that. So I'm talking about how homeopathy can help you to move through shock and emotional trauma. Thank you, Alison, for putting it that way. Leslie says, I've got polymyalgia rheumatica, and it was brought on by a loss of someone. What should I use? That is a really good question, Leslie. I'm just going to be shooting from the hip if I answer. If you are into using homeopathy, you're going to be looking at the grief remedies, things like Ignatia, Natmur, really. Manny says, do you ever use bile nosodes for the gut as well? Absolutely. Bile nosodes are brilliant. So, we spoke about the mind-body connection or the brain-gut connection. And they sometimes talk about, so who's running who? Is the brain running the gut, or is the gut running the brain? And some people say, well, there's more directional attention from the gut to the brain and the brain to the gut. But bile nosodes are actually absolutely brilliant to restore gut dysbiosis there, right? And someone says they started today with 35% food grade hydrogen peroxide for stage 4 breast cancer that I have. Can you talk about that? Well, you can maybe make an appointment. That is the biooxidative treatment that I do use, and it is good to change the oxidation reduction potential in the body, but I wouldn't bank everything on that healing my breast cancer. It can be part of a treatment protocol, right? One was never well since moving countries, and there is anger and grief. Would you use aconite or Natmur? Anger and grief. Possibly Natmur. I don't know if I'd use aconite. Would probably, the Ignatia or the Natmur, or maybe even Staphysagra. And this is where we talk about, can you be specific about, and this is where homeopathy is absolutely brilliant with the type of grief or the type of anger, and the remedies can really get in there, right? Any results with pathologies like osteoarthritis, degeneration of cartilage using megapotencies? Yes, absolutely. You want to maybe look at some phyton for that. Absolutely. But when you're talking about osteoarthritis and arthritis in general, so there is often resentment that has caused that, or maybe there's been an overwork, or there's an autoimmune component to it. Most definitely megapotencies has got its place there. When you have done the case history and you are in touch with the patient, you can see where and I talk about the never been well since, where is that coming from, right? And that's where you lead down the path to, is it a megapotency, or is it just a regular homeopathy, or is it a combo, right? Oh, thank you, Dory. Dory says, Dr. Andy Sadi changed my life by teaching me how emotional health is key to all my physical health. Thank you for that, Dory. Yes, it is so true. And what they teach us, or what we've learned from, never put all your eggs in one basket, and especially from the homeopathic perspective of like, well, you're just a homeopath, but medicine, you must be very vigilant of medicine. Actually, medicine is more powerful. I disagree with that. Over the last 5 years of my practicing, I've put all my eggs in one basket. And Dory, you are a brilliant example of that, how we've actually got to the root cause of the issues, and how the patient is absolutely able to see how their life is changing. I promise you, I didn't pay Dory anything to say that. That is, if you see how she's changed, how the life is bubbling out of her since she's been able to change the emotional patterns in her life. It's been amazing.
I'm wondering why most homeopaths don't do mega doses, and if mega doses for long periods, i.e. 12 months, can be problematic.
So there's no reason. They probably don't know about the megapotencies. What often happens is that, hey, I got my homeopathic training and I know sufficiently, and I just kind of keep myself insular, and I keep seeing patients and treating patients. So not many homeopaths are continually studying and upgrading their knowledge, right? So Jill's information is pretty new, and then it is pretty controversial, because the typical philosophies are like, don't give too high potencies and don't give it too frequently. And Jill's just turned that on its head. And I must say, when I first started, I was like, this is a bit unusual, but I kind of like the unusual. If you tell me to go left, I'll definitely go right. And I just took to it like a duck to water, and it just it showed the results amazingly. So there's no reason why homeopaths shouldn't be using it unless they've got a, some of them are like really principled and really dogmatic, and then no, that's that's away from what Hahnemann said. So then they wouldn't use it. So Blue Ridge says how to take prenatal shock or injury into account for prescribing. She said, do you connect to the mother's experience? Absolutely. That's you hit it on the head, Blue Ridge. That's it. So here's the thing. When you are looking at it, I want to reiterate this. The body always gives you the answer. Maybe we won't know what question to ask or what to look for or have everything down pat, A, B, C, D, but it's always giving us the answer in different ways. We just need to go back and see. And I find that generally people are not going with their intuition enough, right? So the body's always telling us what's going down. What are the ways you recommend to do the creative visualization on your own to get to the subconscious mind? You can maybe find a recording online. Basically, you want to stimulate those alpha waves. Okay. I didn't talk about this, but I use bioresonance training. Bioresonance pulls up those emotional patterns and gives you the appropriate affirmations to change the negative patterns into something that will be more serving to you. So that's what I use. Well, I use that context scan for that. So she's got no thyroid and no gallbladder. I have had more trauma in my life than I can recount to you. Would you still be able to help me? Or Rhonda, let me put it to you this way. Is there anything too much for God? Healing is open to everyone. So I always say to the patients, you are only limiting yourself to what you're going to limit yourself to. If you can be unlimited, you can get your healing. By faith, they are healed. That's what the scripture says. And it doesn't matter where you are, and if you're in the US or wherever, it's online treatments that we do. So that's fine. Dealing with LPR, laryngeal, pharyngeal reflux, or my digestive issues, I'm sure, are trauma and nervous system related. Any remedies for this? Your assessment, I think, is correct. It's the gut brain connection. There are lots of remedies for this. I just, there's too many, or what you've put there is just a diagnosis. It is too limiting to put remedies out there. But you're going to use remedies. Maybe you can use the bowel noses as a start, but get a proper consultation in this regard where you can look at your trauma and the nervous system together. That's a perfect way of explaining, that psychoneuroimmunology, right? Can homeopathy help in the issues of autism, children's autism? Absolutely, there are. With the miasmic tendencies, well, the miasmic treatments that homeopathy is so good at, absolutely. There's lots of groups that deal with autism. It's if you ask me, it's one of the few modalities that has an answer for autism. I don't see mainstream medicine having an answer for autism. They don't look for the root cause. Do you believe in muscle testing? Absolutely. It's just a response. It's basically working through your autonomic nervous system. It's how your autonomic nervous system is responding. Someone says, I've been treated by a homeopath for the cancer I have, and it didn't work. Have you had success with mega doses? So I've been treated by a homeopath for cancer, and it didn't work. What didn't work? The treatment didn't work. Okay. So I don't know what treatment you got. If I'm going to treat someone for cancer, I'm going to look for the root cause issue. And depending on how far the stage is, and what the vital force is doing, you want to not just do homeopathy, you want to do other supportive things for that patient. And I can't think of anything better than the mega doses to help get to that root and pull it out. Can you help with dysbiosis? Absolutely. Dysbiosis is the gut microbiome. Absolutely. Then we can go into a whole big story of why is there dysbiosis? You know, did you use antibiotics? Is it from the top down that this is continually being doing, or are you being aggravated by the maybe food intolerances? So I just want to clarify, and this is just my personal way of doing it. I don't say this is the only way of doing it. I hardly ever just prescribe a mega potency. There will be different layers that we are dealing with the patient, but I will hone in on the biggest issue that is dragging them down and give that mega potency, but maybe there will be a detox course also happening, all right? Really ask, actually, if possible, describe how mega potencies are made. Shelly, I was wondering when you were going to get to this. So, you know, we're talking about 10 mm, 10 million dilutions. You know how long that's going to take if they make it the traditional way. So you get the normal traditional way of doing it. That'll take like a whole lifetime almost. It won't be cost effective really. You get a Korsakovian method of making it, which is just like really diluting it. He was a Russian guy that developed the Korsakovian potency method. And Jill, she makes her remedies on a magnetogeometric remedy machine. Really quick, real. It's really constant. There's no changes because the plant or the substance was in a different state. That's how you're going to do the real high potencies. I think there are a few companies. Is it called INE? I think they've got some. I don't know if they've got the 10 mm. That's going to take forever to produce. That's the way I see it, Shelly. And then, I mean, you're opening a can of worms there. Lots of people say, well, you can't use those machines. They're not as accurate. Yeah, you know, I think a lot of that is homeopathic dogma because people are trying to protect their interests. I was feeling that way. I've used them. They work. So for the mega potencies, that's what I have to use because that's the only way we're going to get that effect.
Do you have experience with patients who are sensitive to homeopathic remedies and gets lots of reactions?
Yes. So there we're looking at issues with your autonomic nervous system. And so you're just going to have to start slow in that regard. And I feel like the answer that I've given you is very bland answer. I don't know how more to answer you there. You got to, I suppose, take more time with that patient and, you know, make sure all your T's are crossed and all your I's are dotted. And then when they're taking it, you're going to be following them up more intensely than, say, a regular patient that hasn't got that sensitivity. Someone asked any book that she says, yes, get Jill's book, Getting Back on Track. Brilliant book, so well researched. She really had a wonderful opportunity there because she was doing the homeopathic side, and I don't know if it was her husband or her partner that he was into osteopathy, chiropractic. So he did the physical aspect and she brought in the emotional aspect, and they would see how someone with a physical condition, you know, whether it be the back pain or the fractured something, would respond to the chiropractic or maybe wouldn't respond to the chiropractic until after the homeopathic medicine was given. They moved or changed the emotional pattern, and then the healing was allowed to occur. And from what I explained, you know, the psychoneuroimmunology, when you change that, when the immune system is able to kick in, then the healing can occur.
Omega potency is instrumental to bringing the patient into the fourth dimension that you described, or is that solely through conscious thought?
I've got to be careful how I answer this because it mustn't be misconstrued. Okay. Feeling like people are thinking, oh, fourth dimension, it's woo, it's not. Okay. But it's basically speeding up your cells, and that's how you're changing the thought pattern. The remedies can do it as well. but maybe it does it in a less conscious way. So it's less invasive. I don't know.